Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bradley Showman, Legislative Counsel, and I am here today to do a walkthrough of a short form bill H608. I'm just share my screen here. I have permission now. So H608 is a short form bill meant to permit property owners to post against hunting, fishing, and trapping using purple paints. Some background on this: the Vermont Constitution, Chapter 2, Section 67 permits hunting on any lands in the state, so long as that land is not enclosed to hunting. And so our statutes define what enclosed means as a matter of law in order to prevent individuals from entering a property for purposes of hunting. This bill would amend how we post. Currently, we post with signs that must be registered annually. This bill would change that requirement from signs that must be registered annually to purple paint markings. The paint markings would be, this is a method of posting property against trespass that is in the law on several other states, at least 15 that I could verify, perhaps more from secondary sources that indicated that there are more states that permit this method of posting against trespassing with purple paint markings. Most often, the purple paint markings are vertical stripe, about at least 1 inch wide and 8 inches long, posted every 100 meters. This bill would put us in line with that, and that is all it is purports to do at this moment. Any questions from the committee?
Is there any assessment on the integrity of the length of duration? For instance, most forestry paints will go 3 to 5 years, depending upon climate, and then they're erased off the tree. They just dissolve out.
It is, this bill as written does not currently assess how often the paint markings must be repainted or things of that sort. However, it is most likely that this bill would contemplate making sure that the markings are visible and well maintained. Most often, similar statutes that have been enacted in other states have required individuals to place them such that they are clearly visible, and invisibility is key. So if the paint is very weathered and it's hard to see, that may be an issue for actually enclosing the land for purposes of the statute.
Representative Taglia.
With respect to paint being weathered, how are we going to define what the definition of weathered paint is?
The other statutes that I've looked at have not defined weathered paint as very specifically. What other statutes have done is put the burden on the property owner to maintain visibility. And these paint markings, must be a certain width and a certain length, and they must be posted. Most often than not, they're posted at least every 100 yards. And so I will pause here and allow Representative Wood to speak about this bill.
Nope.
Representative Wood, I'll let you speak because I'm talking about your bill,
Oh.
and then I'll pick back up where I left off.
All right. That was fast. Oh, it's nice and warm in here. Good afternoon, everyone. Representative Teresa Wood. from Waterbury. I also serve Bolton, Buell Gore, and Huntington. Okay, so, a couple of things about this, short form bill. Sort of the feedback that I've been getting, from people once they saw it introduced. First off, it was a constituent request, and actually multiple constituents. And really started out, because of a town clerk in one of my communities, sending out, updated information, or what was updated information, about the requirements for posting your land. And, I don't know all the ins and outs of, all of the, the rules, around posting. But it was being perceived as, a change or a new regulation or requirement to, having to post, update that every single year. And so she was letting landowners know, in her role as town clerk. And then people started, contacting me and saying, well, this just seems, not doable. I don't, why do we have this? And so then, so I submitted this request. And then what I started hearing from were older Vermonters and people with disabilities who own land, and said, this is something that we have wanted for a long time. And those are the people, after the bill came out, those are the people I heard most from, by saying this, I can't go out every year and post my land. I have physical limitations, I'm getting older. And they found that as a, real benefit, to them. So, that's just to let you know the feedback and those are people all over the state. They aren't necessarily my constituents. So just to let you know that sort of what started out as feeling like a response or a reaction to, what people were perceiving as new regulation or rules, ended up also turning out to be, an accessibility and accommodation for older Vermonters and people with disabilities who own property. Those are the people then I started hearing from. So, that's about all I have. Happy to take any questions that you might have. Except from Chris.
I'll
Save them for.
Present it back to Peter.
How do we remedy accidental postings?
Like people on, not their property, you mean?
If somebody goes out, even with the best of intentions, blazes a tree with this purple paint, and then it's found out that it's not on the line, or somebody accidentally posted the wrong land because they've misread a map or something, and now you've got this paint on trees. How do we remove it without damaging trees, doing more harm than good?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think, that's something that obviously have to be dealt with in the sort of testimony and understanding about this. I don't think that this is, Vermont wouldn't be the first state to do this. I don't know all the other states who do it, but, so that question must have been answered, in other locales.
Hi, thank you. I just want to say, I feel very strongly that people who own land, private land, have an absolute right to protect it or decide. So I want to say that. I just don't want purple marks all over Vermont. And I think there's a better solution. I don't know what it is, but I do wonder if Fish and Wildlife, or somebody, I don't know if it's a study committee, or I don't think you'd have to study it too long, but I think there's a better solution, than the signs and having to do it every year. I just feel like in the world of technology or whatever, there's a better solution, and I'd love to, explore what other options may be that end up with the same result. But we don't have, we're not tagging trees like that with paint, and if they sell the property and they want
somebody wants to change their mind about
Right.
that. Yeah, I get that.
So,
I think one of the sort of more immediate things that could happen is, and I don't, you all will know better, from testimony from, the department about whether in fact there was an actual change in rule or just a change in interpretation. Because, that could satisfy a lot of people really quickly. If that was dealt with. So as I understand it right now, the way the guidance came out or the interpretive rule that, they have to do it like on a certain day each year. And that seems
I agree.
odd to
You
me.
could have a lot of land.
Yeah, yeah.
Representative Pritchard.
Thank you, Representative Wood. So, and these will probably get directed to legal counsel, but I have a whole bunch of concerns and I can, the bill's short form, so I know because of that, it's vague and, it's just to bring up a conversation, but here's some of the things that I'm concerned about. You had mentioned visibility, I guess I would like to know how that's applied in the other states that do this, because to me, that's subjective. Visibility, I couldn't see it. Well, I could see it fine. It's very subjective. The other thing is I would want to know, based on that, how is there provisions for this? How often does this have to be refreshed? How often does it have to be visited to be refreshed? Is it every 3 years? Is it every 10 years? Is it never? I would be interested in knowing if that's, in the laws of some of the, in statute of some of these other states. And the other thing that I think it would be important too, and this is a concern of mine, and I don't know if other states have addressed it, but I don't know what stops folks from going to the store and buying 10 cans of paint and painting the state up. And then if that is done without owner consent or without being an agent, who is responsible for reversing that? What are the penalties for that? So there's a lot of questions I have. Those are the three biggest ones, but I can appreciate the concerns, and I don't know about other committee members, but I can tell you I got a ton of emails from folks across the state. And most of them with limitations of being able to get out of the woods and walk around, and I can appreciate that. So for me, and I agree with Sarita, if we all have the individual right a decision whether we want to post our property or not, and that should be honored. But I think hopefully what comes out of this is what is there that we can do for these folks that can help? Because certainly I can understand their concerns and I can sympathize with it. So, but there's so many things about this that I just have unanswered questions, and I just, Virginia, I used to hunt in Virginia. Virginia has this, it's silver paint. Bad idea, because I'm telling you, it doesn't, it's very hard to see. So I get the change in color, but I just think there's a lot better way to do this.
Certainly interested in whatever ideas you might have, Representative Pritchard. I think that one of the things that this is illuminated for us is, maybe closer attention to the needs of property owners who are older, who have disabilities, and how we might figure out a way to accommodate those needs as we look at this issue in general. And, maybe hopefully look at clarifying for the department, what legislative intent might have been around this annual thing. Thank you. And thank you for not expecting me to answer all your questions.
Representative Chapin.
Can you just speak more about the stories you heard like just, I mean, this is your area of expertise also, just, what experiences do people have with disabilities, with aging? Are people saying they're paying a lot to have this done every year? Like, I don't think it was the legislative intent that people have to pay a lot to post their land, that it was supposed to be something you could do. But the presumption is that people can walk onto other people's land unless they go out and post it. So again, I'm just curious what you're hearing about specific situations
Sure.
and challenges.
I heard a variety of things, everything from I just can't physically get out and do that anymore. I can't go out and, put the papers up on the trees and so they want to be able to post their land, but aren't physically able to do it. And then, the other extreme is people reported to me how they have tried to work with the people who are accessing their land for hunting that they have not permitted. And they feel like they're sort of beating their head up against the trees because people just continue to go on their land and hunt and without their permission, even as it is posted. Those folks felt like, it would be easier to, mark the trees because you could do it more, you could do it more frequently, I guess, on more trees. So it was everything sort of in between. But it mostly it was around the accessibility issues of not being able to get out in the woods anymore. I mean, sometimes these are people who have a difficult time just getting to their car to be able to go to the doctor's office. And yet, they own property. They should be able to, as you said, Representative Pritchard, they should be able to decide what they want to do with their property. But they don't feel able to. This annual thing is what particularly highlighted it for people, because then they realize, like, I can't do this every year. I can't, their sense of ownership of their land and being able to decide, who could be on their land, they felt was compromised. So I appreciated the fact, because I honestly wasn't even thinking about access, even though it's my field. I wasn't thinking about access for older Vermonters or people with disabilities and their land. And so when I started getting those emails, I said, oh, this is something I hadn't even really considered. And so that's why I wanted to bring that forward in terms of that feedback, so that if you decide to take up this bill or any, other similar discussions with the department about how that requirement could be modified, that we consider the rights of landowners who are older or have disabilities in that process.
Paint does not define owner, doesn't provide a contact methodology. And many of the signs for posted land in my area are posted by the owners, Vermonters or non-Vermonters that may own the property, but they say on it, hunt by permission only with a contact. Many of the lands that get painted with purple will not have that ability. And the landowner still retains the right to let a certain number of people on their land at one time by providing the yellow sign that says permission granted by hunting, fishing, trapping by permission only, or maybe just 2 classes. They don't want trapping. So those signs are available. Paint, very, very limited in its utility.
Is there a question? I'm not sure what the question was. Okay.
In the writing of the bill, and this may be for legal, did they research other states? If there's 12 or 14 other states doing this, how are they accommodating the landowner?
I think those are all questions. If you decide to take up a bill or any kind of consideration of, the posting and notification process, those are all questions that, would be appropriate to take testimony on for sure. Representative North had his hand up a minute ago. I just,
The questions got asked by other representatives.
Okay.
before it got to me, so, but thank you, Teresa.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
all right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Teresa.
appreciate
Good
it.
night to Bradley.
Glad we have a warm place here.
And before, Bradley Showman, Office of Legislative Counsel. Before I continue to take questions from the committee, I did want to clarify, I think, this issue came up. Currently, the current law says you have to post annually, and the Department of Fish and Wildlife was considering making that a calendar year requirement as opposed to once every 365 days. So requiring individuals to come out. If they wanted the benefit of the entire year, they would have to post on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and to get the benefit of the entire year. And I think that was the impetus for some clerks to kind of reach out and ask, hey, what does the statute mean? And as we'll hear from Representative Estes in a moment, his statute does amend the statute itself, and we can look at that language in a moment.
Any questions for the presenter?
Just to go back to the 608 purple paint bill, with posting with the paper or the synthetic posters, they need to be refreshed or redated at least every year. The issue still comes up with the paint, how often it need to be refreshed, so it wouldn't be like, I can't foresee it being once and one and done. So the accessibility question, maybe a delay, but not completely alleviated. So I just wanted to make that point.
Any other questions? Representative Jacob.
The sort of ease of contacting a landowner, if you want permission to hunt, or be on the land, came up. How easy is it in this day and age for someone to be like, oh, I see some purple paint on this. I want to figure out who the landowner is and how to reach them.
They might be able to. Find the building on the property and knock on the door if they're comfortable doing that. And they could also potentially search town records and ask for that if they want a kind of a more in-depth way. I don't know if they would be able to get contact information. You know, I think in this day and age, technology has brought us closer together, but in some ways, you know, our phone numbers aren't posted in phone books anymore and things like that. So it might be more difficult to actually get a phone number for someone if you don't have more information about their property. And I think that might be a good thing to take testimony on and to determine how we might notify someone who wants to ask.
Representative Pritchard.
And still along those lines, you know, what Ella mentioned, you know, if you have 5 or 6 properties that join each other, as many properties do, what, is it a different shade of purple to the next property? How do you know where, you follow what I'm saying? I mean, because you just have one strip of purple paint, that may be 5 or 6 different properties, which makes it even, you know, unless you have a, you know, I don't know, a Latin law reading or a UTM reading for where you are at that specific time, it makes it even more difficult to identify, you know, the landowner. So, yeah, I mean, I just have a lot of concerns with this.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your testimony.
And before I give my seat to Representative Estes, would you like me just to pull the language of his bill up, or we could wait?
Okay, certainly.
Please to get the statement of purpose. And Estes.
Hello. For the record, my name is Zahn Eastis. I live in Guilford. That's all right. It's so common. I don't even, I only correct it where I need to. So Jill knows how to say my name now. I live in Guilford, and I serve Wyndham One, which is Guilford and Vernon. So at the bottom of the state. So the story that I'm going to talk about is nearly identical to Representative Woods, except mine doesn't include I'm looking at here doesn't include anything about color. It talks mostly about timing. And the story that came to me, I'm responding to a constituent in Guilford who first contacted the town clerk about the new guidelines for when land needs to be posted. And then I was brought into the discussion. I know the clerk well. I just stepped away from being chair of the Guilford Select Board before I was elected here. So I know the clerk. So I was immediately brought into the conversation just so I'd be there. And so I began having a conversation with the landowner, and then that he included a few other people in town. So it became kind of a community discussion. Then I took the question of the questions that he had and just put them up to the House representatives and asked if anyone else was finding these questions. And there are five other people that contacted me, representatives who have encountered the same question. So those people are co-sponsors to the bill here. The question, I think the issue that we're trying to solve with this bill is just to put some flexibility into the guidelines so that it's not a requirement that land be recorded, that the posting be recorded on January 1st. My local constituent was concerned about what happens to my land if I can't get to the town clerk until January the 6th. Is my land unposted by law? And so he was very concerned about that. So this bill simply suggests that whenever the recording is made, that the posting be good for 365 days after that. Consequently, as same with Representative Wood, I've been contacted by other people since the bill appeared, other people around the state who say that even as it's stated now, it's not adequate. So there probably needs to be further thought into, if you decide to take this up, into sort of really taking care of all the situations. So hopefully it just needs to be very clear. I will say that I spoke with Chair Sheldon about this bill, and the department is aware of the issues that are now standing. And there might be a way in which they would just solve the problem themselves without a bill, without legislative action. But here it is in case we need to move that forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
In the emails that you got saying that there were other inadequacies, did any of them elaborate on the?
Yes, I don't know. It's not my expertise. I've got that all here and I could go through it. And there were 2 or 3 instances where they want to make sure that I guess it's about, right now, it says which date the guidelines say that it has to be done on January 1st, which doesn't work in any case because town clerk's offices aren't even open then. So then the question is I guess there would suddenly be 2 dates. It would be either January 1st or the date that it was actually recorded. Which is the date by which the 365 just needs to get clarified, that kind of thing. Yeah. Buttoned up, I guess.
Representative Jacob.
Thanks. I think we've all been hearing, I won't speak for everybody. I certainly also have been hearing from town clerks and constituents immediately starting this fall. And now we have like 1 million letters in our inbox. Do you feel like this bill is just trying to codify what the vast majority of the state has been operating under?
Yeah, what I understand, and again, I live in Guilford on a property that's unposted, so I don't deal with this at all. So I never have dealt with this kind of issue personally. But what I'm understanding is that it seems like there has been a change of late that has brought forth all this activity and these considerations, and that since I don't know what it was before, maybe going back would be the way to go, or just look at it more carefully for a future. But yes, I think it's,
Maybe I'll ask the same question of legal counsel, because that was sort of my wish, is to try and codify what almost all of our towns have been operating up until this fall.
yeah,
And this to me, feels like what that was, but I'll ask.
okay.
Which
I
counsel.
will say that when I was talking with my town clerk about it, he just felt very kind of stuck, other than all he could do was hand out the guidelines, and it wasn't helpful. He knew he wasn't being helpful, and he didn't have any solutions either.
Thanks.
Representative North.
Yes, thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Yeah, was there any thought given to changing the posting date to an expiration date? Wouldn't that be just more clearer? Just like on your license, there's an expiration date on your license. It's obvious. It's not like 365 days from, you gotta figure it out.
That
It's pretty easy, but still. I mean, it seems to me an expiration date would be a lot clearer.
might well be. I also heard, why not move this date from January 1st to a date that has nothing to do with hunting at all? When people can walk out in their woods anyway, like July 1st or something like that. So, yes. So that would be up to you.
Any other questions?
Just,
Yes.
note of it, thank you, Mr. Chair. for that. I'm reading the statute now. It just says that the owner or person posting a land shall record this posting in the town clerk's office of the town. Doesn't say January. Council is going to have to advise if that's what it meant.
Right. I think this doesn't say this, the purpose was to move it away from any kind of bad situation. I think because the guideline now does say January 1st, which is causing that.
It's in the rules. Yeah.
It's in the rules right now.
Richard.
Yeah, the other thing I noticed in your bill zone was it was very specific. It said hunting, trapping,
Oh,
fishing.
yes, that's,
Didn't say anything about trespassing.
yes. Yeah,
I said, so
that was not intentional. I think it probably,
Okay.
yeah. And that's another point, thank you, that was brought up. There are multi-uses. As I think you spoke about earlier, the signs that are actually on trees now often say pretty clearly what's supposed to, who you can contact and what activities are possible. And so,
Those hunters carry cell phones.
yeah,
I've been called many times. And I always grant permission. They ask.
yeah.
I want to put QR codes on all trees.
I
Then you could just go, you know, and it would say you can hunt on here or fish on here or the date and and you could just keep changing it when you need it.
Is that a bill request?
Thoughts.
Representative Tagliavia. Your hand up.
I'm just wondering with the date being an issue or whether we do every 12 months, what about some sort of like a grace period if there's a fixed date? Kind of like what you had suggested, maybe not January 1st, but sometime maybe in the spring or middle of the summer when it's much easier to get out into the woods. It's going to be easier for people to know where to post, where they'll all be visible anyway, because all of the leaves and trees. So there'll be that question would be alleviated because visibility sometimes comes up.
Yeah, I think, so I heard from folks about the idea of moving the date to another date, and the very first person that contacted me was concerned about what you might call a grace period. Just how to clarify that could be tricky, and so, yeah. 365 days from the date that's on this thing, don't come here, right? Yeah, couldn't be like that, but yeah.
Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
Pull up the language of the bill here. And if it pleases the committee, I can do a walk through the language of the bill. I can talk about what this bill does. And then the committee has some questions about what the bill doesn't do, and we can talk about that as well. If that is okay, great. So this bill proposes to amend requirements for posting of land against hunting and fishing to clarify that posting annually means posting once every 12 months. This bill does not address trespassing, and so that would be a broader bill. So this is a narrow bill meant to post against hunting, fishing, and trapping. And there's a specific statute in Vermont statute for that specific purpose. And so the goal of this bill, as written, was to amend this statute. But if the goal of the policy is to exclude other kinds of activities, other statutes may be needed to be amended. So right now, this is just hunting, fishing, and trapping.
Just to clarify, is that because the guidelines that Fish and Wildlife, can you just relate that? Was the Fish and Wildlife guidelines so narrow that it doesn't touch trespassing?
I'm not familiar with if the Fish and Wildlife guideline actually changed or if it's being proposed to be changed, because I know that this is a developing issue. So I'd have to take a look at those guidelines and see. That said, to answer your question more broadly, this statute and this issue pertains to hunting, fishing, and trapping. And so trespassing more broadly is unlikely to have been addressed in that rule, such that that rule is interpreting this statute. If that rule is interpreting other statutes or bringing other areas of law into effect to give landowners the right to exclude other people from their property, that may be the case. I'm just not familiar.
Representative.
So I understand this clearly. So if you're not hunting, fishing, or trapping, you're okay to be on the land for any other purpose.
So, and that is beyond the scope of today's conversation, because those are good questions, but what this bill does is prevent hunting, fishing, and trapping. And so there may be other laws and other policies at place that give a landowner the right to exclude people for other purposes. This statute concerns hunting, fishing, and trapping.
So, okay, so it's specifically prohibiting hunting, fishing, and trapping.
Yes. Okay. And so this is the notice and posting requirement of the statute. And so an owner or a person having exclusive right to take game upon land or waters thereon desires to protect their land, or private pond or propagation farm over which the owner has exclusive control may maintain notices stating that shooting, trapping, taking game, fishing, hunting, fishing, shooting, trapping, or taking wild game is prohibited or by permission only. Fishing or taking a fish is prohibited or by permission only, or hunting, trapping, fishing, and taking a game is permitted or by permission only. So these are the core things that this statute is looking to enable a property owner to prohibit. And the rest of this piece, notices have to be erected upon or near the boundaries of land, and notices at each corner and not over 400 feet apart along the boundaries themselves. And I think earlier I might have said other statutes with the purple paint set that limit at 100 yards. I misspoke. It is 100 feet. Most of those statutes. That doesn't necessarily mean that. That doesn't necessarily mean Representative Wood's statute would have to be 100 feet, but that's common. It's feet, not yards. And this is what changed. And I'll speak to this because Representative Easties spoke to this as well. So the owner or person posting land shall record this posting annually in the town's clerk office in the town in which the land is located. So that's the statute as currently written. This bill would add language saying the posting shall be valid and enforceable for 365 days after the date the posting is recorded. And so this gives the landowner the benefit of an entire year of having that posting be legally enforceable to exclude hunting, fishing, or trapping for 365 days. And the date that matters is the date the posting is recorded. And that is, up until recently, that was the practice of most, if not all, town clerks, was that you would just have to post annually. And that annual definition was by the date of recording. And so this statute and this amending the statute was meant to return to that status quo. Now, there might be other issues that have come up and other issues that this committee might want to consider in terms of how do we effectively post property to make sure that people know this information. But this statute as amended was meant to restore us to what we assumed was the status quo before issues started brewing with the Department of Fish and Wildlife saying that, well, we want annually in this statute posted annually, these words I just highlighted here, to mean every calendar year, as opposed to 365 days after you record. And the rest of the statute talks about filing with the clerk. There's a $5 fee for filing, and land posted as provided in subdivision B of the section shall be enclosed land for purposes therein. Highlighting that because as I started my presentation out for Representative Wood's bill, it's a constitutional right to hunt in the state of Vermont on lands that are not enclosed on section 67 of the Constitution. And so this statute lays the requirements for enclosing your land to hunting. And that's also why this statute only deals with hunting, fishing, and trapping, as opposed to other kinds of trespass or other kinds of activities people could do on a person's property. It's because it is meant to address a very specific issue. The committee is, of course, welcome to broaden the issues, but this bill is narrow in that sense.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a clarification. So right now, under, sounds like a proposed rule or a new rule. Is it the case that if I posted my land November 1st, it would just expire January 1? Is it like the way the liquor licenses used to all expire on the same day?
I think that would be the idea.
Okay.
That is the proposition, the proposal from the department.
Okay, so this idea is I post my land November 1st, it's good until November 1st of the next year.
That would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
I suppose it would be October 30th, but okay. Yeah.
31st.
Oh, 31st, excuse me. Gosh, I almost did the knuckles. I just took a gamble.
So you gotta keep leaking. 65.
Well,
Just go with that.
and as the committee's pointed out, there are a number of things that an individual could do to make this clear. And those are decisions for the committee to address.
Can I ask Chris a question? I just want to know, like, when you go out hunting, do you come, like, let's say you wanted to go to this place, can you get ahead of time? Can you look somewhere to see if it's posted or if it's posted for what? There's sites in the town clerk's office that could tell you. Okay.
Well, you can go, actually, the state of Vermont has a website that identifies everybody's property, how much acres and name. So it's easily, you can find it that way. It doesn't give you their, a contact
But you could
information.
map out where you're going to go hunting according to where you can go hunting, right?
Yeah, which you should do with the landowner way ahead of the
Yeah,
time, not the
that'll-
day before deer season or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions to our present? Okay.
So I would like to hear about what other states do. I think it's really helpful. So you said there's about 15 states, maybe more, but I'm curious about the constitutional piece, which is that particular to Vermont, and does that constrain or guide us in a particular way different than many other states? And what do the rest of the states do? Are there many states that post similar to us currently?
So Vermont, and I may be incorrect about the specifics, but Vermont was either the first or one of the first states to have a constitutional right to hunting, and a state constitutional right to hunting. And not many other constitutions do that. I know some states have amended their constitutions to enable a right for hunting, but Vermont is, if not unique, in one of the few that does that. And so you're correct that a person's constitutional right to hunting and also their constitutional right to enclose their land does come into play. And there is actually a Supreme Court case, a Vermont Supreme Court case, that in a footnote, so it's dicta, which so that's not necessarily binding precedent, but in dicta, the court looked at the statute and said, well, just because you don't post in accordance with whatever the Department of Fish and Wildlife wants, doesn't mean you haven't met the constitutional rights to enclose, right? Because there's a balance in any constitutional provision, there's always a balance, right? Between one thing and another. And because ours is constitutional, the statute that we pass and how we manage that, if it were to arise to the Supreme Court, we might be surprised by the outcome. But so suffice to say that there is a balance between a right to enclose and a right to hunt. And so should the committee take a bill up, one or both of these bills up, it's a good thing to be thinking about.
But part of the problem with the new, I guess it's proposed rule with the January 1 date be because Vermont has its hunting license and I think its fishing license go from January 1 to January 1, where other states go from August to August, I believe.
And I'm not familiar with the policy impetus from Department of Fish and Wildlife. I think that would be a great question to have them in testify on.
Seeing no further questions.
Okay, great.
Thank you so
Very
much.
much.
Thank you, committee. And it was a pleasure to have my first walkthrough with you.
You know?
Thank you.
You're always welcome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well.
Imagine actually.
Awesome.